Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Going to Ground. From here in Marlborough to wherever you are this day. It's good to be with you. It being the Lord's Day, I wanted to think a little bit about church buildings. The closure of our buildings in these months has been a very significant cost to our community life. And whether or not you're associated with the church, you'll know something of the impact of that and the contention of the issue of how we should do that and when they should open and how. And our re-entry into church buildings in, let's face it, rather artificial ways is going to be really extremely challenging and raises within us all kinds of feelings about their significance, because although we've recovered during lockdown a worthwhile and valuable sense of the church being primarily a body of people, and unhoused we've been able to serve our neighbour and grow place in creative and good ways. There have been surprising blessings of this time. We've also been aware of all that our church buildings signify, which is more than just a house for our congregation. It is our buildings are storehouses of local memory, signposts, I believe at best, to our future, and go beyond words in their spiritual symbolism. So over this next couple of days, I wanted just to read to you a couple of pieces that I wrote last year about two particular parish churches. And the first of them, in Imber, is closed most of the time, so I thought this might be quite pertinent. Not that it's a kind of model, but it is a fascinating window into what the building means, even when closed, curiously. This is called Preserved in Imber. Forgive the pun. Imber isn't easy to see. Camouflaged like a curlew, the stone tower of St Giles Church emerges about half a mile from the village as you approach from the south. This is about as deep into Salisbury Plain as it is possible to be. Little Imber on the Down, 7 miles from any town, ran the local rhyme, before access by civilians to the village was blocked by the MOD during the war. Like its better-known counterpart in Dorset, Tyneham, Imber was evacuated in 1943 to provide a training area for US troops preparing for the Allied invasion of Europe. A lane leading into the village, American Road, is one reminder of their residency, as are the railway tracks strengthening the curbs against Sherman tanks in nearby Shrewton. Imber is now open to the public for 20 days a year, during which the well-preserved parish church receives nigh on 15,000 visitors. Can you believe it? 15,000 visitors. Hearing this, I'm momentarily tempted to call for the evacuation and closure of all Wiltshire's parishes in order to spark their nostalgic revival, rather like the annexation of the Isle of Wight in Julian Barnes's bright satire on national heritage, England, England, which I commend to you as a read. I wrote this, of course, long before lockdown. Next Saturday, scores more will rattle down the Imber Road from Warminster in specially chartered Routemaster buses. But what draws them? Surely the myth of settlement and the irresistible thrill of decline. Black-eyed homes, overgrown greenery, and the uncanny thought that when every other village is lit, Imber will remain dark. Yet whatever kind of place Imber is today, part stage set for army manoeuvres, ironically these husks of houses are used for urban operations training, part pop-up museum or pilgrimage site, it's hardly a lost Eden, and by no means abandoned. During the Afghanistan conflict, I learn, 700 Afghans were brought here in order to recreate a bustling oriental bazaar around which troops patrolled, observed from above by incredulous buzzards. Nature reigns in Imber and comes uncommonly close. Roe deer lope over the road, a red kite takes flight mere feet away, and the encircling fields jitter with butterflies. My guide, a conservation volunteer with a privileged red pass to visit these restricted areas, has spent 20 years mapping and logging them. Butterflies, ponds, all 290 of them, and the winterbournes that vein this pulsing landscape. The detailed attention of such latter-day Gilbert Whites means that Salisbury Plain, while barely inhabited, remains deeply, devoutly known. Ghosted by plastic sheeting, the altar in St Giles Church awaits the next service. Like the buses, there are 2 or 3 a year. A baptism, remarkably, although the incumbent informs me that he'll need to bring a salad bowl, the font having long since departed. It's in Brixton Deverell Church, I think. I discovered bits of Imber Church are scattered around the rest of the diocese, which is fascinating. When it closed, the furnishings were dispersed. I think the pulpit is in Winterbourne Gunner or Winterbourne Earls. As I write quite regularly, I come across furnishings from Imber that were scattered across the diocese when the future of the church was in question. Happily, the church's Conservation Trust now cares for the building, which is already realising its singular potential as an emblem of persistent Anglican faith. We aren't to stray beyond the road. Military debris is everywhere strewn in this mock battlefield. Passing carcasses of never-inhabited homes erected in the 70s for training, it can appear that everything here is a facade, with an emotional force highly charged, but ultimately blank. Then you realise Imber was dwelt in for 900 years, making its zero return in the national census, shown continually since 1951, deeply poignant, pregnant even. As we leave, a lone volunteer tugs the bells of St Giles into life. For us? Maybe. But as they ring across the unharvested fields, it feels as though the land could be rising to worship. God bless you today as you go to ground.